Hi, I am Joel McLeod.
I'm Roland Tanner.
And welcome to another episode of the 905er. Today we are going to be having a fun-filled episode filled with politics and back and forth and all sorts of fun antics that you're used to. But before we get to that, we want to pass along a quick reminder that if you've been enjoying what we've been doing, what we've been bringing to you, and the stories we've been talking about, and the guests we've been having on, what we need from you is to throw us a few bucks. Your financial help would go a long way to helping keep the lights on here at 905er headquarters. And to do so, we'd very much appreciate it if you would take a look in the show notes and think about becoming a monthly Patreon supporter for only $5 a month. You get to keep us going here at 905er. And if you can't do that, you just want maybe just one-time donation, one-time support, feel free to buy us a coffee. Again, the links are in the show notes. Every little bit helps. And now on with the show. So, Roland, what is in the news?
Yeah, well, it's a couple of big things. I mean, really provincial things, but certainly things that have major impact on the 905. First one is the Ontario Liberal leader, Steven Del Duca, announced at their annual AGM last weekend a fairly big announcement about ranked ballots, as first saying that, as would be expected, that a Liberal government would reintroduce the ranked ballots that were abolished by the PC government. But secondly, that he would then also pass legislation to implement ranked ballots as the provincial electoral system. There was no talk about any referendum, no talk about alternative methods, just simply that's the method we're going to use and that's the method we're going to introduce. And that raises a couple of points. I mean, and I think it's one where we have slightly different opinions, so we can explore those. Joel, you're a fan. Am I right?
I like ranked ballots. I think it's very easy to understand. It's more accurate for people to get behind, and it's more importantly, I think it's a way to cut down on the rhetoric and the partisanship that we all get so tired of. You know, it's one of those things like you kind of have to fight for the middle more. You don't have to worry. You can't necessarily rely on your core people anymore to bring you to power, or you don't have to worry about dividing people. You actually have to say, no, if I want to win this seat, I don't have to be your number one choice. I might have to say, can I settle to be your number two? And that's the and to do that, that means compromises have to be made, or you just have to be a little bit more reasonable, a little bit more personable to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off by saying that I've said for many years that I would take any system as a step up from the system we have. First past the post is indefensible and bad. And yeah, would I rather have ranked ballots? Yes. The problem is that I see are twofold. One, that this is how the federal government got into the mess they got into with electoral reform. Basically going and saying we're going to introduce a new system, and then heavily hinting that ranked ballots was the one that they wanted, and then finding that they didn't have the support that they thought they had.
That's not what happened, though. That they went on and they tried to do this referendum where they asked everybody what do you want, and they had 30 million different suggestions, and so it's. I think what's different this time is that Del Duca just says, no, this is what you're going to get, which is a lot better than what Trudeau did. Trudeau thought he'd try and
yeah. I mean, but by choosing ranked ballots for a Liberal Party to choose ranked ballots, I think it opens you up to two accusations, which is you're picking the system that's best for you, because the criticism of ranked ballots is that it tends towards the center. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a powerful criticism if you are not using any kind of form of... Now, I'm not a fan of referendums. Referendums have caused all sorts of problems in recent history in various countries. And I'm definitely not a fan of them. Don't see why they have to be used when we're talking about electoral form, when we don't have a referendum if we're declaring war on somebody. However, I think there are very good arguments for multiple different electoral systems. I've voted in a system which was I think ranked ballots are absolutely perfect for our municipal system. That absolutely is fantastic. It works there because it means that you don't get this ridiculous system like we saw say in Burlington, picking at random, of someone with about 10% of the vote winning a council seat, because you have to get to 50% to actually win, and that means that your second votes are going to count. Where I think it works less well is at a provincial level when you're dealing with parties. As I said, I'd still take it. I would still take it. I just think that there are issues with a Liberal Party opening itself up to the criticism that it's picking an electoral system that will guarantee itself a stronger position than it already has.
Okay, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room then. Everybody associates Liberals with not coming through on electoral reform promises. I mean, Trudeau got elected back in 2016. Was it? He first mandate he got elected on the promise like that was going to be the last election we're going to have with first past the post as our system, and we've now had 2 elections since then, first past the post. Which kind of brings me to Del Duca's other promises on the weekend in the speech, which was in addition to the ranked ballots, he was also going to bring in the 4-day work week, which is interesting in itself. And then he was also going to bring back the basic income pilot project that was supposed to continue underneath the Conservatives, but the Conservatives canceled it. I mean, those are 2 very big, huge things for the public to digest, especially coming in post-COVID. The basic income and the 4-day work week are huge.
I have to say, with the 4-day work week, I literally have no clue what the argument is in favour of this, and it's news to me. So, I mean, do you? I mean, other than let's have a longer weekend, what's the argument?
I think that's it. It's have a longer weekend. There's no. I mean, there's lots of thoughts that we don't need. We don't need a standard 5-day work week. The apparently in New Zealand, Spain, Scotland, Iceland, this is being considered. I think it'd be interesting. I think it's an interesting play to make of focusing more on people, which is it's an interesting way to frame, I think, to a political strategy for the Liberals to pursue. Because I mean, they are decimated. They haven't even gained any seats since. Really, they've had a couple of the members leave the party to go run federally. I don't know if
there's been remarkably few by-elections this term. Right, it seems to me.
And so they haven't had an option to really expand their caucus. Mm-hmm. They are still bleeding members, so they kind of have to come in kind of swinging for the fences and making huge promises to start getting attention. This is a good one, I think, to get attention.
I mean, but that's another criticism I'd level at ranked ballots. From the perspective of current politics in Ontario, I do not. No, I'll be completely frank, and I apologise to friends who are listening. I'm not going to like what I'm about to say. I think there's no way in God's green earth that Steven Del Duca is going to form a majority government next year.
No.
I think the best case scenario is there's a minority of a progressive party looking for support from one of the other progressive parties. Best case scenario from a progressive point of view, obviously, which is pretty much what we have here. In that situation, to have already ruled out mixed member proportional as a viable method of running elections, which is used in New Zealand, which is used in Germany, which is used in many countries, I think more countries than ranked ballots, certainly. The only ranked ballot country I can think of is Australia, I believe, but I could be wrong. I think is again, the NDP are not going to support ranked ballots. Not in a million years are they going to support that. You've got to look at ways that you can compromise and we need a better electoral system. To say we want the system that favours our party is already shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, I mean, it's shooting itself in the. I don't think it's necessarily shooting himself in the foot. I think he's playing the politician. He's able to grab attention to him because we're talking electoral reform. The thing is, the ironic thing is because of Trudeau making the promise when he did back in the day, and then goofing, not following through on it. He like the appetite is there. People the last two elections, people say, "Hey, we're not supposed to be having elections this way. We're supposed to be doing it some other way," and so that the intention is there. So I think Del Duca is kind of capitalizing on it by saying, "Hey, I'm going to be the guy who changes in Ontario how we elect our members of provincial parliament." Ooh, that's interesting. I'm like you. I don't think Del Duca is going to win majority government. I don't see the Liberals having the strength to push forward with that. I don't necessarily think that they have the organizational strength right now to push ahead and do that. They might have a few great candidates. I think they have a couple of interesting candidates. I won't go into it, but nobody there is really wowing me. And I think Del Duca is trying to grab a little bit of attention for himself, as Trudeau did back in the day. Let's swing for the fences. Let's promise outrageous things. And I'll be honest, quite frankly, I don't think any of these suggestions would be on the table if Del Duca was in opposition, like the leader of the opposition, or going for a re-election to become premier. This is very much let's swing for the fences and just try and grab attention. Is it gonna work? I think he'll pick up some seats. I think he'll take some seats away from the Conservatives, maybe some from the NDP, but
it'd be interesting. I mean, so I don't think this is any secret to anybody. When the OLP, the Ontario Liberals, had their leadership convention, I mean, Del Duca ran away with it. It was the most boring leadership convention ever. Won on the first round, and the mood was we went too far to the left with Kathleen Wynne, and now we have to go back to the right. I have a real problem with the logic behind that, because it's like, where are you going to get your votes from if not from the NDP? Mm-hmm. I don't think the problem with the OLP, the Ontario Liberals, at the last election was that they were too far left. It was that the world had decided that they had enough. They had more than enough of the Ontario Liberals for the time being. Thank you very much. We talk about basic income. We talk about many of these things, which Del Duca is talking about bringing back. He's talking about bringing them back because they were popular things. These were key platform issues of the last Liberal government. It wasn't the policies that did it. It was the perception that these guys need to go. They've been around too long.
Well, also we're coming out of the pandemic now, and the basic income pilot. Like, there are a lot of we've talked about on this podcast. CERB and now CRB. A lot of people say that it works. It works to drive up wages. We keep hearing about people complaining, "Oh, CERB doesn't keep anyone. It keeps people staying in their homes." And the argument is, well, if that's the case, then pay people more than what CERB pays them, and you'll get people coming into your shop to wait tables or serve customers or whatever have you, or make your workplace a more hospitable place to come in to work if you need them so badly. Which we've talked with Jesse Golem and Deirdre Pike on this podcast about the UBI pilot project and how it helped get folks stable and able to start businesses and be financially independent and all that stuff. It's a program that probably its time has come. Kudos to them to say, yeah, I'm just going to bring it back, finish the pilot project, get the data, and probably roll it out within the first mandate of them doing so. Are they going to do it? Probably not, because I don't think they're going to form government. Now, the NDP might say, okay, we'll do it with you. If they have like an NDP Liberal coalition, or at least the NDP brings it in, they might say, yeah, we'll bring it in. Liberals should support it now.
Which brings us back to, and I'm not going to repeat my repeated rants about why Canadian politics is a coalition-free zone, and why we have this crazy situation of governments trying to govern from a position of not having enough seats. I don't get it. It's crazy. But there we are. That's what happens. So, there's a good chance that what we'll end up with is the Liberals and the NDP collectively with enough seats to bring down the Conservatives, but actually propping up a Conservative government because they won, in highly inverted commas, by having more seats than the NDP or the Liberals singly. It's just like no one understands the rules of our parliamentary system somehow, and points out, it's like, no, this is not how it's meant to work. Winning the most seats doesn't mean you won if you can't control the House. It's controlling the House that matters in our system. And who controls the House can be any mixture of MPPs or MPs you want to put together. I don't get it. I simply don't get it. And it misses the opportunity that minority governments can be periods of enormous innovation, which we actually saw in Canada with Pearson and working with the NDP for Medicare and everything.
Medicare, much of the welfare state that we know and love.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was an instance of two parties in a minority cooperating together to get stuff done. Why we can't do that anymore, I do not understand.
Well, wait and see after the next provincial election. I suspect Doug Ford will come back as premier only because I think the NDP and the Liberals will divide that race pretty well. Now, I could be wrong. I mean, I was wrong about Trudeau not calling the election. You know, I'm wearing pie on my face perpetually for that call, so I could be wrong about this one as well. But I right now I don't think the love is there for Doug Ford at all. But at the same time, you look at the game, he's got a divided progressive wing of the province that, you know.
I just don't see. I mean, I was saying on Twitter the other day that Andrea Horwath is an interesting person. I mean, she's a survivor. Goodness knows she's been around. I don't even remember. I've been in Canada for quite a long time now, and I can't even remember who the previous leader of the NDP was. It's so long ago. It's before I was involved. I can kind of do know, but I can't tell you the name.
No, you know what? We should invite Andrea on. She's she's definitely from the 905. Her and Steven.
Hey, she's my MP now.
Well, there you go. Call her office up and tell her to come on. But her and Steven, I'd both welcome on to. You know what? Have them on at the same time. So you have to be a talk of a coalition in the works. Well, I would love it if they did. I'm not holding my breath, but I mean, and I'm talking about the coalition side of things there. I absolutely hope that they would come on to podcast because, yeah. Well, we've gotten a bit off topic, but the other, we're keeping on the politics bandwagon, but the other topic we wanted to talk about was the other political party in the Queen's Park legislature, the Progressive Conservatives, and more specifically that Steve Clark, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, decided that he'd single out writing an op-ed into the Hamilton Spectator advocating for, of all things, boundary expansion that's currently up for debate in Hamilton City Council. Yeah, so hopefully we're going to do a full episode on this with people involved on the front line, so to speak, soon. However, the context behind this is that the Hamilton Council did an unusual thing for any council, of actually doing some fairly major consultations by sending out a load of surveys to people saying, do you support boundary expansion or not? Boundary expansion means change the boundaries of the city and then build on what used to be protected farmland, and that would be overwhelmingly single-family homes, so what we tend to call sprawl. Single-family homes, car-centric development. The very kind of development that this same government, the Ontario government, and the previous Liberal government, and any government you care to elect, will tell you is the wrong kind of development. So
the results came back and not were overwhelmingly against expanding the urban boundary in support of increased density and making sure that new homes are within the city limits, which is kind of an amazing thing, actually, in many ways. That if basically you have a community voting for more density, more high rises, certainly more mid rises, rather than saying, well, let's stick these people out where I don't have to worry about them. So voting for the environment over their convenience in some ways. Well,
I mean, we've talked about the need for smarter development many times on this podcast. I invite, if you're a newcomer to the podcast, go check out some of our episodes with Mike Moffat on the housing prices in the 905 in Ontario in general. We've talked a lot about this, and the minister is right that part of it, we need more inventory in the market to start kind of bringing housing prices back under control. I agree with that. However, just building out is just punting the can down the road, so to speak. Like you build out these neighborhoods for single family detached homes. You just kind of you're spreading it out. Now it's one of those things that the current provincial government doesn't seem to either get the science behind this or the economics behind this. I know that a lot of the advocates in Hamilton are asking for more infill, and the reason why, if you've been downtown Hamilton, Roland, you've probably
there's plenty of space for infill.
There is. There are
so many parking lots.
There's so many parking lots. There's so many old buildings that, quite frankly, yes, I'm in favor of protecting the architecture of many of the buildings in Hamilton, but there are some buildings that have just been let go so bad that they're beyond salvaging. Okay, tear them down and build something that's affordable and progressive and that kind of thing in the downtown core, and help build that up. What the minister's solution is, would end up, it's just going to be a cratering of Hamilton, with the downtown just this blight and hollow and unworkable, and everybody kind of building up, going up the mountain out to Stony Creek, Ancaster, and just everybody having to live farther and farther away from Hamilton.
Well, I think we already know this, but a famous quote of Rob Burton that comes back to my mind all the time is that Ontario isn't run by the province; it's run by a group of bloody developers from Vaughan. And this is a classic case, because the arguments that Clark uses in this op-ed are the exact opposite of the arguments they use in every other municipality in the 905, where they say, well, we can't go out, we've got to protect the green belt, so we've got to go up in your downtown, and those are fine arguments. But then we got the same guy going, well, we can't build downtown in Hamilton because we've got to protect all those sensitive neighborhoods all of a sudden. Now, since when have the PC Party of Ontario given a rat's ass about sensitive neighborhoods? They don't. It's all about the developers. In each of these instances, the developers are pushing, and they're pulling the arguments to let them build. This government, and I'm not saying, frankly, I'm not arguing that the Liberals were much better when it came to development. They, the Places to Grow Act was a way of letting developers develop, and we want people to build. The problem is how building is done in this province so often delivers the wrong kind of building in the wrong kind of place.
Well, it's one of the things that we've been advocating on this podcast is in smarter development. Think about more, a more comprehensive, a more holistic approach to development. Not just, okay, let's put a condo tower here and a condo tower there. The idea is, well, okay, if you're going to build more living space, make it livable. So you got to build more shops, more transit, more public space for people to be able to enjoy, live, eat, breathe, all that stuff. One of the things we're talking about was, as people live closer to home, you could think about turning Jackson Square into a more communal area where you'd have more restaurants, that cater to people working from home. especially if you're living in the downtown section. That in itself takes a lot of for planning. One of the things we always talked about was, what if the provincial government worked with current landlords to find ways of getting these businesses out of their leases to free up real estate, to say you can convert that into the residential units instead of commercial units, and that kind of thing. And you can do all this stuff, and this would be a great way to free up units, put them on the market, and stabilize the housing market, at least in the 905.
Yeah, there's so many good ideas that are worthy of examination and that this government will never look at because they have no imagination beyond, let's get back to normal after COVID. Let's everybody get back into their cars so they can commute. But that's again. The thing. Like, let's create commuter homes. That solution
barely worked in 1994, let alone 2021. Like, just saying, okay, let's build new highways. Let's just keep building out another subdivision, keep moving out. And here's the other thing we keep talking about is they tell you, oh, we need to keep building out. You need to keep building out, but not just the environmental side, but we also have the issue of the Six Nations, which is on Hamilton's doorstep. And, they've come out and said, no, we're going to, once you get into the Haldeman Tract land, which is not that far away from the well, and a related note to that, I believe there's been a ministerial zoning order today for Guelph that basically gives the go-ahead for a major development there, which is on the Haldeman Tract land, and I think the Green Party actually issued a press release saying, this shouldn't happen. So yeah, they're again, everything you do is so arrogant, and we don't care about the whole discussion going on about First Nations at the moment, about how the very viable and genuine disputes over the Haldeman Tract status. We're just going to ignore all that, and we're just going to ministerial zoning order the whole darn thing and let the developers develop. Again, Hamilton has the right to say, we do not want to change our urban boundary. That is the municipality's right. And they are just going to overrule that. I mean, that is overruling democratically. Whatever you think about the current council, it was elected fair and square. It has that right. And in this case, seems to be leaning towards doing the right thing, which is say, no, we want density. We believe this is good for Hamilton. God knows it will be good for Hamilton to have more density, to fill in all those areas which need to be filled and not be, windswept parking lots. It begs the question of who is this government actually listening to? When they were Doug Ford first elected, it was all about for the people, and it's becoming very clearly that the people who are saying we don't want this, this isn't the direction that we want the province to go into. Those aren't the people Doug Ford and the provincial progressive conservative party are listening to.
I have seen only one group of people that this government has again and again focused all its attention on. It comes back. The other big announcement this week was Doug Ford basically saying Highway 413 is going to happen, come hell or high water. Mm-hmm. Well, the only people who seem to be front and center in wanting that highway are developers. Again, it's about unpicking the green belt piece by piece, and all these things which impact the 905 region deeply at every level are all about development again and again and again. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist as a rule. I'm not that kind of person who's like, they're all out to get us or whatever. The evidence is just there, and it's overwhelming. It's the developers again and again and again. They are so deep in the pocket of these guys. It's just not funny.
Maybe that's where we have to leave it off for this week, because we're coming up on our half-hour time limit. But we're going to be back next week, hopefully with we want to keep touching upon these topics because they're important. They do not seem to be going away. So I will leave it at that, and thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye for now.
That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.